You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, how y'all doing out there in beautiful Burleson and surrounding areas and beyond? Oh, this
And there you go with the volume.
Yeah, no, I know.
Episode 314 or 15.
And I'll get it sooner
And we
or
still
later.
have the volume
And
on.
I still have the volume on. I'll get it sooner or later. But anyway, today we have Jenny Nico, and I'm not even going to attempt your last name in reality. What exactly is it?
It's Greek.
Yeah, I know. So it's like about a half a mile long, lots of vowels. So I said, forget it.
Nicolopoulos.
So who couldn't, geez, I mean, who couldn't remember that? But no, we call him Jimmy Nico, the dog trainer to the stars.
There we go.
Yeah, you like that one better?
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of Texas Rangers in your client list. You were telling us last week, we had lunch with Tiffany and Otto last week, and you told me you had several Texas Rangers as clients.
Yeah, got lucky and met kind of the right person during the summer. And her husband ended up being the head doctor of PT for the Rangers. And so long story short, she needed some help with her dog. And I had been having some kind of shoulder issue for the last, 3 years.
Yeah.
I'd gone to TCU's doctor, several doctors, and I'm going, I can't figure out what's wrong with his shoulder. Well, long story short, go over there and found out who he was, and I said, hey, I'll train your dog for you. Can you figure out what is wrong with my shoulder? And he's, sitting in his living room. He's like, sure, take your shirt off and go sit up on my table. I'm like, right here? He's like, yeah. And so he went through a range of motion test and figured out it wasn't my shoulder, it was just a pinched nerve. And after like 3 therapy sessions, about 3 hours, and some acupuncture, he fixed it. And I fixed his dog. So it was a good trade. And
There you go.
ended up, now I've got, 9 of the Rangers players.
Will you teach them how to hit? Did you hear what happened to them yesterday?
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not familiar with what happened, fans, something happened to the Rangers yesterday that's never happened in Major League Baseball history. They had 2 innings in which the other pitcher struck out the side on 9 pitches. The immaculate inning, as they call it. And that hasn't happened since they started playing baseball in the 1860s or whatever, keeping stats. So your Rangers are now in the record books. Oh, my gosh.
Well, yeah, they're in the record books. And I got a cool Ranger story.
Well, hang on, but you know Janet Pollock Farmer?
Yes.
Oh, he says that you're a blessing to our family.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm glad she said so.
Yeah. Well, hold the story because I want to do the first round of ads, and then you can tell us all about that. Okay.
Sure.
I'm going to let you talk about your dogs and your experiences in Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, that'll work.
And, your tours of duty. How many tours did you do?
Well, I did a tour in Afghanistan, and then they were followed up by several like small missions tours. So,
Okay. So anyway, we'll start off with the ads, and then I want to talk about that dog you're petting because it's a very well behaved dog to say the least. All right. Anyway, thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. So check out their webpage for the memberships, the training, all the different regimens they have. It's a good workout. It's a serious workout. And so CrossFit Burleson's your place if you want to get fit. Also, Shandy. Something wrong, Taylor? You're just adjusting. Okay. Shandy, Stogsdill, the Stogsdill group. We talk about inflation and all this on one of my shows, and the interest rates are going up. So if you're looking to buy into this Burleson area, you need to have somebody on the inside that knows where the homes are and where the home's about to come on market. A lot of these things are being sold before they even hit market. So you need somebody like Shandy Stogsdill. So give her a holler. Also, thank you to Rex Russell at the Russell Wealth Group. Hit myfinancialbox.com. Get to know him a little bit. He'll help you through this. The market, as we speak today, is taking a beating. And I'm just going to look at it right now at 11:04 a.m. and see how far down the slide we've been going. And the Dow Jones is down by over 700 points, and the NASDAQ over 438 points. That's just reassuring. Anyway, since I don't have a vast portfolio, I'll be okay. Anyway, thank you, Rex. He'll help you all with that. Say the myfinancialbox.com and get to know him. Have a little coffee. Also, thank you to Southern Jim, And you're engaged now, right?
Yes.
Have you gotten to Southern Gym yet to get an engagement ring?
Yes.
Yes, I figured you did. Because I know that Gayla and Tiffany are friends. My wife works there now, so she's there right now. So go
She did a
see
great job too, by the way.
Who, Gayla?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She helped me out with that.
Yeah, Gayla really knows her stuff. And she's great at design as well as just, retail. So she can do the whole thing for you. Southern Gym on top of the Windmiller building. And so give her a look. And thank you to Hotworks, Michelle Humphrey. Hope you're doing well over on 731 at the Commons.
I've been going there since it opened.
Which routine do you use?
I use all of them.
Oh, I mean,
except for the buns.
Okay, the buns. Okay, you don't want the buns of steel. But anyway, but there's like several different types of workouts, right?
Oh yeah, you could do the bike in the sauna. They've got a row machine. They've got kind of like a spin machine. Then they've got several classes that you can do. Like for guys would think that they couldn't go there, but I go there.
Hot blast.
Yeah, yeah, you can do blast.
That's my favorite.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, for guys, I know. No, I didn't get paid
weird.
for this plug.
Yeah, I know, but that's fine. It's great.
This place, well, and I know it's a family show. After a long night of drinking, it will be gone the next day.
You hear that, Taylor?
I heard it.
Okay,
Why do you
good.
think I joined?
Yeah, okay, good. Well, she and Tiffany have a lot in common. They're both very energetic entrepreneurs and things like that. And it's, I don't know if they know each other personally that well, but they'd be good friends if they did.
Yeah.
Also, Mandy Harden at Mandy Creative Concepts by Mandy. Check out the webpage for promotional items. I think tomorrow or Monday she told me that by that day I'm going to have some coffee mugs and hats and stuff like that. Everybody wants a coffee mug from Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. So if you're looking for other promotional items like that, she did T-shirts, pins, banners, the whole thing. Taylor recommends her, so there you go. Okay. I'm sure the people that are watching this, either on YouTube or on Facebook, see the dog. Tell us about the dog.
Yeah, this is Rip. This is a dog that was bred by Destiny. She raises Dobermans, Magnolia Dobies, and she also owns Barking Mads.
Is that that's Barking Mad? That's nearby here, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I think if I remember, what is it on 1187 or near it?
Yeah, it's somewhere right down the road.
Well, I know.
She moved to a new to.
But it's a local outfit.
It
yeah.
is local.
Okay.
It is local, and she does a great job. And she takes care of my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to leave your dog somewhere, if you're not leaving it with me, Destiny's the person to do it. But anyways, I'd wanted this dog since he was born, and trying to get another dog and find another dog to replace kind of an older service dog I'd had. So I'd gotten with Destiny, and we'd been going back and forth. And he's also a show dog. He's won some shows.
It's a handsome dog. It really is. It's beautiful.
He is got a great temperament, but he also knows bite work. He's just really smart and just really laid back.
But this isn't a pet, though, is it?
No, he's a service animal, and he's a service animal for me, and he goes everywhere. I think you'll see him all over Burleson. You see him at our place.
Oh, yeah.
Southern Oaks Golf Course. He goes golfing and helps me with my golfing.
There you go.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
We drink a lot of water. It's hot, but he's just a great dog. Those that, these creatures bring so much joy to people, whatever your disability is. And as I was telling you earlier, we all have something wrong with us, but some of us really need that companionship and that.
Well, I don't ask too personal a question, but what does that dog do for you?
He's more of like a PTSD kind of, Tiffany will tell you, I can get amped up very, very easy. So he kind of just brings me down, just petting.
Yeah.
Kind of brings me back to earth. Some of that's coming from combat. Some of it's from just daily stress. You don't have to have gone to war to have some kind of stressful event in your life, and
right.
That causes you anxiety. But there's several service dogs. You've got for hearing impaired. You've got psychiatric service dogs. You've got your mobility service dogs. You've got those that can detect seizures. So there's several. And then you have emotional support animals, so that are a little bit different than service dogs. So.
Oh, by the way, Eric Farmer says to tell you that Remy says hi.
Oh yeah, Remy is his dog.
Okay.
Great dog, and she was a little skittish, and he boarded her with me, and she did great, and he's a veteran too. So yeah, thank you for your service there, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that later, about when people say that phrase to you, how you react to that, because some people have been told don't react well to it.
Well, I tell people it's a choice. I had a choice, and I guess like leading kind of into that. The reason I joined was to kind of get away from my parents and get in the restaurant business, get out of the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Being Greek,
Oh, yeah.
they were very successful restaurant owners, and I could not figure out whether I wanted to go to college. I tried college, wasted about 30 grand because I skipped and went to Ranger Games.
Which college? UTA, I guess?
No, I went to DeVry. I went to technical college.
Okay, technical college. Okay, good.
Never, kids, go to college for what you want to do. Never listen to your parents force you into a career field. And that's just my opinion. And I was kind of forced in that. And it's not a bad thing, but I just didn't really care to do it, and so ended up wasting a lot of money skipping, and then had to pay it all back, which was brutal because my mom didn't pay for it. So I decided to go to the Army, and I wanted to be saw this cool Ranger video. I was like, man, I want to do that, because the military, they make everything look great on TV. I wanted to be a paratrooper, and I wanted to sit on the side of a moving boat, and have my weapon hanging off of it as I'm going through a creek with face paint and whatnot, or jump out of an airplane with my dog, or but they don't tell you all the hurry up and wait stories where you have to go sit at green ramp for like 4 hours prior to jumping, and you have about 150 pounds of gear strapped to you, and it's extremely uncomfortable.
Well, see, we were talking about before the show, that's what my dad did. Exactly. Fort Bragg. He was a jumper, Special Forces in the early 60s. And he went into the reserves about 2 years before Vietnam really ramped up. So fortunately, he didn't have that experience. His main experience was training Thailand's officer corps, but his closest military encounter was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he had the same experience you had. They told him, be at the hangar with your gear. And they were in the hangar for about 24 hours waiting for the order to jump into Cuba. And that was like at the peak of the crisis. They're just waiting for a signal to board the plane and get after it. And unfortunately, they told him to stand down and go back to the apartment he and my mom had and wait. And by that time, I guess Khrushchev and Kennedy worked something out. But he didn't talk about it very much because he's pretty low key about a lot of things like that. But it had to be a consciousness raising experience. And you probably had several of those. Yeah,
you do. And I'm pretty open to talking about it. There are some guys that aren't, and some guys, there's a lot of guys that have worse experiences in the military or Afghanistan, Iraq, Kosovo, Africa, Mexico, Colombia, the drug raids, the places that these guys have been. So those are several conflicts that have happened, over the recent years, that some you hear about, some you don't hear about.
Right. This heroic image that the Army put in the ads that you bought into, was that your experience, or was that good advertising?
It was good advertising, but it was rewarding. Nevertheless, I remember signing up, and it was right before 9/11. Actually, it's a pretty cool story. I saw the Ranger video, and I signed up for, RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, and had to go to jump school, had to go to basic training. I was a 11 Bravo, which is an infantry guy. So went to Fort Benning, went through basic training.
That's so did my dad, yeah.
Went to AIT, Advanced Infantry Training, then went over to, marched really right next door to Airborne School. And that's where they have the black hats and have the 250-foot towers and teach you how to jump out of airplanes. So completed that, and then went on to RIP, and then went on to my unit, and got to my unit. I ended up at the 82nd Airborne, 1st of the 504. Parachute Infantry Regiment. So kind of like your dad, which, Fort Bragg is home to all special operations. You've got, USASOC, you've got JSOC, United States Special Operations Command, JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. And then you've got 18th Airborne Corps. You've got, 3rd and 7th Special Forces groups. So, and then you've got your Delta Force, which doesn't exist, which is actually now called Combat Applications Group. They're there. So got to my unit, and all of a sudden 9/11 happens. And, when you're on base, each base has think of a red light. You've got red, yellow, and green, and everybody had cell phones at this point, so we called them Corvettes. So you've got yellow Corvette, red Corvette, green Corvette. And basically what that is recall, depending on what color. So say, for instance, they do these Corvettes when you have a 3-day weekend and test you and see, hey, had you gone, 1 hour further than you were allowed to. So they would do like a red Corvette, which is like a 2-hour recall. So you've got to be back on base in your uniform with your sea bag, ready to go as if you were going to get deployed. Then they've got a yellow, which is standby, and it's an hour. And then you've got green, which means you're going to war. Like you've got to be back on base within 30 minutes and get all your gear and be ready to go. So 9/11 happens. And that morning we were doing a training, we were jumping. We jumped into Normandy, DZ, which is a kind of like this table right here. And it's kind of a training exercise. We all jumped in, and it was early in the morning. And so we're out in the field, and all of a sudden we get a green Corvette, like green Corvette. They don't do that. That's why you have your red and yellow. A green is there's no test. All right,
so the green wasn't like some kind of drill.
No, it was not a drill.
Thing.
It was real war situation, and we're going, what is going on? And we don't have our cell phones when we're in the field. We have nothing. So we've just got kind of our NCOs and our captain, our lieutenants that, have all that. Because at this point in time, I'm a brand new, they call you cherry.
Right.
Brand new cherry private, well, I think it was a PFC, private first class at that point. And they're like, we're going to war. War? And war? What are you talking about? And they're like, someone bombed the World Trade Centers. And at that point, there was just one. Then the other one happened. And then the Pentagon. And then the airplanes. So we're hearing all this. And we ended up going to Green Ramp. I never saw the towers hit till after I came back from Afghanistan.
You mean, yeah.
On TV,
right.
Paper, never saw it live. Never saw it. Went straight to Green Ramp. We ended up leaving, and that's kind of how that happened.
Where did you go?
Well, we ended up leaving the U.S. and went to Kazakhstan, which is the coldest place on Earth. It's a giant sheet of ice. It's a terrible place. And then we ended up going to Afghanistan, flew into Kandahar, and its only airport, and ended up staging there and went to combat, which was really crazy, 9/11
and all this took place in about a 30, 40-day period?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one day you wake up, typical drill, a month later you're in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and you're a combat veteran. And the last time there was a conflict, was last time they gave us CIB, which is a combat infantry badge, was back in, those that experienced war in Iraq that first time when Bush was in office. Then you had Panama, which some guys did go, but a lot were called back. So,
there's the entire group that went. Were they as inexperienced as you were? Or?
Well, when you get to a unit, you've got captains, lieutenants, first sergeants, master sergeants. So you've got, you'll have about 5 or 6 new guys. So it's kind of like the new guy on the team just getting there, and all of a sudden you're going to combat.
So you weren't all inexperienced?
No.
Well,
now, you
good.
had trained up until this point. The good part about being a cherry, is you trained in basic training as if you're going to war. Whether it's shooting, now jumping, all those things. You've just never been in it for real, which most of those guys at that point in time had spent most of their military career never going to combat.
Right. I mean, after the Gulf War in the early 90s, it'd be a full decade before anybody had actually been in a combat situation, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and there was, not every unit goes to combat. So most people think everybody in the Army go. No, there's certain units that are rotated in and out, and maybe a couple units during the first war got to go, and then the rest didn't, because it didn't last very long, even though it seemed like it lasted long.
So how long was a tour over there?
Well, tours at that point in time, you're looking at 12 months.
Right.
Now they've been extended to 15. Well, now they're not there anymore.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that at the end. But so you go there. How long were you? Would you say in the dangerous areas, the combat zones?
Well, we were in a combat zone the entire time. So Kandahar was a war zone.
Okay.
But you're in a camp inside the wire, and then you'll go outside the wire. So you do missions every day. So it's like there's no days off. I mean, it's not like a 9-to-5 job.
No Sabbath in Afghanistan, huh?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, they don't. No.
Yeah.
To each his own, but there is no Sabbath in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and there is no such thing as a day off. So these guys, these soldiers, are going, well, infantry unit guys, but even some of the admin and support, you have some females, which I never work with females my entire time in the Army. I'd see them, in another unit, or they'd be doing your paperwork when you're processing, or you go to the hospital, you get injured, then you'd see some females or some MPs. But in our unit, straight guys, and just all ready to go to war, and ready, as we would say, shoot somebody in the face.
Well, so
that was kind of...
Yeah, well, you have to probably have that mentality. You can't go in there. You're not out there to pass out Sunday school literature. I'm sure you had to have that kind of mentality. I've been reading a really good trilogy on World War II, and the good thing about this book is it talks about how these young men that we put in Europe or in the Pacific learned very quickly how to kill somebody, to be frank.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't ever dream they would be like that 6 months earlier. But when you get to war, your attitude changes.
Yeah, I remember, vividly, our first time we went outside the wire. I was telling you this earlier. There's one highway in and out of Afghanistan. It's Highway 1. And it's right outside of Kandahar. And so we were leaving the wire. I volunteered to go on this mission. And so it was me, a guy named Ramos, and Sergeant Macarenas was his name. Couldn't stand him. But he was a good leader. And I see why he was so hard on me, especially being brand new, because you get your little hazing. Well, back then, like we're talking 20 years ago. So there was that break-in period. But when you go to war, there's no hazing, there's no break-in period. It's combat. So we volunteered to go on this mission, and it was to kind of go through and clear a town. So there was like 4 gun trucks, and we were one of them, and we were the last truck. And so we're going out the wire, going north, and there's a truck coming south, and it's like a beat up Toyota Hilux pickup. Just didn't have doors. There's a mounted 50 cal on the back of it, and sandbags in the floorboard. I'm looking, and you can look, and the guy's got beard, long hair, and there's 2 of them. They travel in 2-man teams, and it's a Delta team, which is CAG team. And they wave us down. They're like, "Hey, where are you going?" We're going to, we're going to this town down here. And he's like, "No need to go. We've already killed everybody." I was like, so it kind of like deflate your sails. I'm sitting there ready to go. Like you got your hands on the butterfly trigger, and you're ready to see something move, because it's at that point in time, rules of engagement when the war first started, where if you felt threatened, you would shoot anything. So he tells us that, and then he's like, "Never mind. I'm kidding. It's like hunting ducks in a pond," is what he told us. And that was my first time out in the combat, and went and did our thing. And it's have you hunted? Have you hunted?
I wasn't raised as a hunter.
I'm not either. I never really did. Maybe one time.
Yeah.
But I do remember the one time that I went hunting, and I saw a buck, and they call it buck fever. It's kind of what you feel when you're see a person, somebody holding a weapon, and you put your crosshairs on them. It's just I can't even explain it. It's not like you look forward to doing it, but you're in a combat situation.
And survival instinct.
And it all kicks in, and it's just surreal. And then by the time you get back and you and your buddies are talking about it, and you're just like, man, or you hear the first pop go by, and it just like whistles, and you're like, what was that? You're like, that was a shot. And you'll have an RPG go over your head, and you just hear it vibrate, and just crash into something. So it's unreal.
How many of those missions do you think you went on?
Probably 20 with our AT group in the 504. So 20 like actual, like where you would possibly engage. Other times it was being a support element. So we would go out and support like, a SEAL team or a Ranger recon team, or, a special operations team like the Green Berets, which are more teachers, like you were saying. We would be like a support and a security element for them when they would go in and do raids.
I'm sure that was, not to say the least, adrenalizing. After you come back from one of those, it must have been tough to kind of come down from it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the Super Bowl. You're just on this high. If you ever played sports or played in a big game and your adrenaline's going, it takes you a little bit to calm down, and it's kind of what it's like.
Yeah. So how long were you in Afghanistan in this tour?
Before I was injured, golly, I can't even remember when I was injured so long ago. I might have been there 7 months. And I got injured, and I ended up getting injured on a mission, and I won't even go into detail, but we were doing something, I think, on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, like at a fire base. And long story short, I got injured. So
is it the problem with your shoulder?
No, it was my hand.
Right.
I messed up my hand really, really bad. Got it messed up. So I had to end up going back to the hospital. They took me back to the hospital, and in Kandahar, and they didn't have the right doctors there. So then they shipped me to Bagram by like a care flight, shipped me to Bagram Air Force Base. And then from Bagram, they didn't have a hand specialist. The only hand specialist they had was in Germany, Landstuhl. So then they medevaced me to Landstuhl, Germany. So I'm still in my uniform. So I'm going from place to place to place. Get to Germany, and they kind of get my hand situated, and then they're like, well, you need to see a hand surgeon. You need to go back to the United States, and you're going to go to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and we have a hand specialist there to fix your hand. So meanwhile, I'm in Germany, and, my injuries were nothing compared to some of these guys. So reality really sets in when you're in a hospital, or you're on a bust in, and you see guys that, are missing hands, legs, face burned off, or better yet, blind completely, or both legs are gone, and you're like, it's just my hand. Wow. I'm lucky, but I know one story. There was a kid, and he was a Marine, and so after we get to the hospital, there were a bunch of cameras and stuff, and they're like, don't talk to the media, don't tell them where you were at, OPSEC, Operation Security. You're just going to go in, you're going to change, and get into a hospital gown. So I'm in a hospital gown with combat boots, and they're like, don't talk to anybody until you get to like the waiting room. So we get into a waiting room, and I swear there's like 30 or 40 guys, and everybody's telling their stories, their war stories, there I was, and it's for real. There they were. They ended up getting messed up pretty bad. There were a couple guys with like missing arms, and there was a guy with a missing leg, but there was this one Marine, and he was a brand new Marine, and he had been shot 8 times, and he's walking around. He had been shot in the head. He had got shot in the shoulder, stomach, chest, legs. I mean, you name it. This kid was like bulletproof, essentially. And everybody looks at him and is just like, okay, I don't have a story. I don't have anything cool enough to say.
And he survived all of this.
Yep.
Oh, goodness.
And he's walking around like, you're going, you were shot in the head. So we were in Germany. Then they decide to send us back home, and we fly in like a. This is a funny story too. So,
well, can I do my second round?
Yeah, do your second round.
Because you know some of these people, and I think it's important that people know who's bringing this story to them. Because I'm listening to this like, you know, this is where it's a real thing. This isn't something you see in the TV or something like that. But anyway, let's get right back to it real quick.
Yeah,
no
problem.
But anyway, you know Otto well, don't you? Don't you go there every day, just about?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Rip and I go there every day.
At our place?
Our place and eat breakfast.
You betcha. And it's a great place to do it. I'll be there Monday I do all my business meetings, so to speak, there. You know, my meeting with potential sponsors or that BNI group I'm in, a networking group. So I'll see you Monday, Otto. Hope you're doing well. Also, Wild Cigar. Are you a cigar smoker?
No. But Tiffany's been a few times, and Michelle from Hotworks has tried to get me to go. So
you gotta go. It's a really nice place. You don't get to, you know, if you don't smoke, it's fine. You can have a decent drink, and you can have. It's a quiet place. You and Tiffany can spend an afternoon there and just unwind, as opposed to going to some loud sports bar or something like that. And they got some sort of, I think today, if I saw the ads right, they have like half off wine or some kind of wine special. So go ahead and check that out at Wild Cigar and Culture. Also, Antonio Basalo, Proactive Payment Solutions. This is point of sales operations and other types of online business operations. They can help you with the rates and the credit card rates and the point of sales operations. So check out Proactive Payment Solution.com, and Antonio will set you right up. And of course, Tiffany, you know well. Your proposed marriage date's about 2 months from now, right?
August 27th.
No, yeah. Well, that's a good thing. You've done well. I'm sure people have told you that. But I'm very fond of her, and she's a very impressive young lady. So.
Well, I actually have a name now instead of Tiffany's boyfriend.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yes. Okay. Well, anyway, you said you had a story.
So finishing up when I was injured, I came back to the United States. We flew. They flew us commercial, and so the American Red Cross, sponsors all that. So they gave us these Red Cross backpacks. That were military camo, and you had this big Red Cross on it. So we go to load up on the airplane, and everybody's sitting first class, except me. Well, I guess they had forgot that I was a veteran. I don't know, because I was walking. And they put me, I had the very last seat on the airplane while everybody up there had first class. So I was a little upset about that and didn't really say anything. I just kind of let it go. And so we're flying from Germany now to Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a long flight.
Yes, it is.
And I'm sitting back. My seat doesn't even go back. And I'm going, man. And so I see all my buddies up there. They're drinking, have a good time. And, of course, me being in the back, I had to pay for it. You don't have any money in Afghanistan, but they're getting it for free. So a stewardess comes back, and we're probably like 6 hours in the flight, and there's only like a few hours left. And I said, hey, are all the veterans, is there any extra seats up there? She goes, are you a veteran? I was like, well, yeah. I said, here's my backpack. She's like, oh my gosh, we gave all the veterans first class and all you can drink. And I'm going, are you kidding me? This is, if it's going to happen, it happens to me.
Yeah.
So the coolest thing though, so we get off the airplane and we are walking out, all of us that were injured. There were several guys, probably like 15 guys, and we're walking down the the terminal.
Right.
And so I think one guy noticed us and started clapping. And then everybody in the airport clapped. It seemed like a mile long. Like they stopped what they were doing and clapped the entire way for us to baggage claim. It was unreal. Probably the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And at that point in time, you're kind of like embarrassed because you're injured and you're broken and, and some guys don't make it home, and here you are getting a standing ovation. So, and as you said, it's kind of awkward when people do it, but I appreciate it. And I tell them thank you because most people that say it do mean it.
Sure.
So it was pretty cool.
And after your injury was healed or you recovered, do you go back for any more tours?
No. After that, they wouldn't allow me to jump anymore, and they wouldn't allow me to be on my team anymore. So I'd sent you some photos.
All right. Well, do you have some, Taylor? Why don't you run through them? Okay. What's this one?
Oh yeah, that's me that's my 203. So that's basically what those rounds, they're HE rounds. They're 40 millimeter grenades basically strapped to me. I can look at it here and see it better. So you would put your name on your t-shirt and your blood type just in case you lost your head. So they could,
How nice.
Identify you, or you lost your dog tags or lost something and you needed a blood transfusion like ASAP. So you would write it on your boots and on your shirt. And so these are some laser sights with that's a grenade launcher underneath there. That's a M4. And then, here it is. Here's our sniper position in Afghanistan. That mountain right there is Pakistan. So this is Fire Base Asadabad in Afghanistan, and that's me on the radio. So we would go there. We would rotate. So we'd hike up a couple thousand feet and just basically oversee the base camp that's below us.
Well,
Oh, yeah, that's me when I was young. Oh,
young
gosh.
and full of piss and vinegar and
Absolutely.
ready to roll.
Yeah, that's me. And so all these pouches around me are grenades. I think you'll see it next on the next picture better. Oh, that's me in the middle of the night. We were doing a raid. Here's our first kind of firefight we had gotten into. So
Who's taking these pictures during a firefight?
So we were just messing around, and then all of a sudden, hell broke loose, and that's me right here with a 203, and that's the interpreter because we didn't give him a gun because we didn't trust him. So he's back here. He doesn't have anything, so he's hiding behind a rock. So that was pretty cool. That's probably my favorite photo. That's up on the ridge. We had gotten bombed, hit with RPGs, and then I was lasering to see how far away the targets were so we could call for close air support. And that's my 203. So notice all those pouches? Those are grenades. So my thing was, why in the world would I need to wear a vest to protect me? If I get shot, I'm getting blown to pieces. So that's like you're a walking bomb. So anybody, when I would walk around, they were like, you need to stay extra 100 feet back because if you get hit, we're all dying. So if you ever see a guy with a 203, just know he's got oh yeah, that's my barracks. I love that. So if I could teach our daughters how to leave their room,
nice and neat
and tidy. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Oh yeah.
Oh, you got the hoodie on. You're looking bad and tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when I didn't have wrinkles.
Yeah, I know. Well, how about that? I mean, so after you were injured and then you recovered, you still had service, right? Yeah,
so I ended up getting out early and was med boarded, and so medically retired from the military, and then ended up living in North Carolina and, kind of started working with dogs more, and that's where the dog training really took off, was kind of like finding that next career path. And I'd handled dogs in the military, but it wasn't until I really started training till I got out.
Where in North Carolina, by the way? My wife's family's from there.
Fayetteville, Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, okay.
And then ended up moving up towards Raleigh and lived in Raleigh, and then Winston, Greensboro, Asheville. Right. So really, really pretty.
It is. Very nice.
But yeah, then dogs have taken over, and now I'm training dogs full time, and the Rangers dogs. And
how did you get to Texas then?
Well, I ended up moving back home after my parents died in 2014.
Where's home?
Mesquite, Texas.
Okay, Mesquite. Okay.
So never had been to Fort Worth, moved back, and I just moved to Fort Worth because I never liked the Dallas traffic. I heard Fort Worth was always nice.
It is. That's one of the best places you'll live.
I can tell you, yes, yes. I will. I cringe every time I go into Dallas now. But yeah, Fort Worth has been great. Ended up meeting Tiffany, and then Burleson. Never thought I would live in Burleson. Never thought I would honestly like Burleson. Didn't like it initially, and then it didn't take long for me to fall in love with it. Like the community, the
Right.
people, from all the friends and just through training dogs, all the great people that I've met in the community. And I mean, the community's has its arms open all the time.
I've been very fortunate in this position to meet some people that do really selfless service to the community and their citizens. And it's like, my goodness, I didn't really realize just how many people like this we had.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's positive for the most part. I mean, you have your negative, but
Ignore them.
I've never felt more part of a community than here, and never met as many good people as I've met here, because I've been military and been closed off for so long. My friend group is maybe 5. Those 5 guys know who they are, because I keep my circle pretty close. And then I've got my family now, and that really takes precedence over really anything else. And Tiffany's my best friend, so we do everything together. And
When y'all first met you, she was on the show as in September, and you accompanied her, and you were doing some talking. She was just looking at you like, "That's my boyfriend," and so I couldn't.
Well,
I could tell this was not just some passing fancy.
well, she's the talker, actually. To get me to talk, she's probably surprised that I'm doing this right now. I was trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to make it for an hour.
Well, you're doing great.
Looking at the time, but
It goes right by real quick.
she's the one that started my business, actually, here in Burleson, and it started off with her local Life magazine. She was like, "I'm going to put an ad, and you can pay me $500." And I'm paying you? I'm paying you for an ad? I was like, it's not going to work. And she's like, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Yeah, this is her play. This is a real conversation now. Like, I'm telling her it won't work. And so she's like, "Tell you what, if it works, you don't have to pay me. And then after that, let's just see what it does." So the first month, I think I had 1, which essentially, 2, essentially paid for the ad. And then the next month I'd got 5, then 6. And then I went back and had a couple. And then now it's I can't even keep up with it.
Well, where is this dog training take place?
So I usually do it, we'll do it, like if we do boards, we'll do it out of our home. We'll do only a couple per month. And then if I'm doing in-home training, I come to your house, and the best thing for me to do is teach you. It's not the dog. We confuse the dog. It's teach you how to build that relationship and bond with your dog. I can do it all day long, but it does no good if you don't know, their mannerisms or what makes them tick. And that's just communicating, teaching them how to communicate with you instead of giving them a whole bunch of mixed signals, teaching you how to really speak dog, essentially.
Now, when you're training these dogs, are you training them for your type of purpose, for service to animals, or for like obedience?
I do some service animals. That's few because it is expensive, and then everyone wants a service animal nowadays. But if you have a real need, I'll do it. But mostly it's pet dogs, and then I do police and military work.
Oh, really?
So I do that for
What do you the
certain
police
clients.
and military dogs? What are you training them
So
for?
bite work, how to bite, and so
They need to be taught that, huh? I figured that was natural.
no, not for most. You gotta. It's a game to them. Now, most people think bite work and teaching a dog to bite is the dog needs to be mean. No, this dog will bite you. My dog at home will bite you. But
You talking about Mr. Meeps?
no, Delta is he's at home, but that's on command. But any other time, you can take him out in public. Take Rip's here to sleep on the floor. But if you were to engage me, it'd be a different thing, especially with Delta. Rip's newer, and he's still learning it. But if you were to swing at me, for instance,
It's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
But I figured most of the training you were doing is probably for people who want a dog that is obedient and minds the owner and all that, as opposed to, maybe a service dog. Because like you said, I have another friend who has a service dog, and it's, the training is extensive.
it is extensive and it is expensive. But for most people, just teach the dog how to obey.
Well, this service dog isn't for like PTSD, it's for diabetes.
Oh, his, yes.
It has I don't know what it is, but apparently it's my friend's son, and if he goes really, really low or something, like the dog can alert them.
Correct. They'll alert them.
Yeah, and I just like, wow, how do you train a dog for that? But I guess they know how to do it.
Yeah, they do. And it's extensive and it's expensive. So they start looking at these dogs when they're puppies, when they're born.
So we're not talking about a dog at midpoint of his life that you could just take a dog that's, just been living for 4 or 5 years in the house and then turn them into a dog like Rip. He has to start off when they're very, very young.
Yeah, they start off young, and it's all temperament. So it all starts with a breeder. Now, you can get some dogs that are older and use them as emotional support where they can go into facilities and help elderly and can help you get around. You can do those things, but the odds of you getting a 10-year-old dog and 9-year-old dog.
Right. Well, Janet Farmer is endorsing you highly here about her dog Remy being a different dog since you took over.
Yeah, she's a good dog.
Yeah.
She's a good dog. There is no bad dog.
It'll pop up on the screen in a minute.
There is no bad dog. Just us bad owners.
Bad owners. Okay.
We confuse dogs for the most part. So.
Well, and I've heard a lot of good things about your training regimen and about the success rate you have with these dogs. And then not just Tiffany telling me this, but if, when I had said you were going to be a guest on the show, I had a couple other people. I wish I could remember their names right now because it was a couple of days ago. They were very highly enthusiastic in their endorsement of you. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so
it's been the cool thing about this is like community. You get to meet so many people every day and deal with their dogs and can help them communicate better with their dog and understand their dog, because a lot of it is just some miscommunication, and people think that they need extensive training when in fact they may only need a few sessions, and that'll completely change their relationship with their animal.
Well, I'd like to go back to Afghanistan for one more time for maybe a less pleasant topic, and that was the withdrawal we had last August.
Right.
When you saw that going on, what was going through your mind?
I mean, it's bittersweet. Now, this is my opinion.
You're free to say whatever you like.
And I tell people this all the time. This goes back to whether you want to kneel for the flag, stand for the flag, you're upset with whatever. We fought to give you the right to make a decision, to talk about it, to do whatever. Does that mean I support it? No. And do I support withdrawing? Absolutely not. Totally against it. And that's the way I feel about it. And for those that differ from me, that's okay too. You're entitled to your opinion, but being there and going through what you go through, and I've got a list of 10 names I could read off the top of my head to tell you guys I know personally that died in Afghanistan or Iraq. And I'm just one man. Now imagine how many countless other soldiers there are, or people that have had that same experience, or families. And even those that died in these attacks senselessly, it was just murdered. I just think all the work that we've done goes to waste. There was a strategic way to do it, and I don't believe that it was, even though it's said to have been, it's not, and it's been documented and proven.
Right.
So I just think it should have been handled a lot differently.
I guess what really bothered me the most about the Afghanistan withdrawal was just how poorly planned it was, and then in the aftermath, that we were being told, well, this was a universal decision, a decision made by all the leaders of the military, and we found out no, it was basically Joe Biden. And I'm not trying to be too political, even though this show is known for that. I thought Biden handled it terribly, and then he tried to make it sound like it was handled, it was wonderful, it was flawless, and then obviously it wasn't. We lost more people, and the Afghanis lost a whole lot more people. And that scene of people hanging on the plane as it's trying to take off makes everything that the administration said about this withdrawal a lie.
Well, and you've got to think those people. I was telling you this. I've met some great people in Afghanistan. It's not like I walk around every day and I see someone in a turban or something and I get this gut-wrenching feeling or scared. No, it doesn't bother me because the positive experience that I've had in Afghanistan with those, and I spoke with you about some of the interactions I had with the people, but I think we let them there essentially to die, because what the Taliban are, they're a gang. They're murderers. That's it. There's nothing great. They don't want education. They don't want freedom. They don't want any of that. They want to oppress everyone. And when you leave and leave them to take over, they're the only ones that have weapons. They don't have a governing body. They have some of the soldiers that we help train. some of the special operations soldiers that had helped train, and you essentially leave those people back in the hands, and those bullies will take over again, and it will go back to what it was.
And it is. And in July, before this withdrawal, the president was saying that they left the Afghan army in great shape. Would you agree with that assessment?
No.
Okay. I didn't either at the time, and then it was obviously proven 30 days later to be a false statement.
No, you took all their resources away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and we left a lot of resources behind for these bullies you're talking about.
That's what's going to happen. They're going to overthrow the Afghani militia, take their weapons, and use it against them. Just like a lot of people don't know, the Russians were slaughtered in Afghanistan originally. Mm-hmm. And those weapons that they have now were from the Russians. They're still using those weapons, those AKs, the Taliban. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they still have vehicles that they're using that are Russian. So,
well, I was just mortified, as a son of a veteran and as a friend of some veterans. I just saw the whole thing. I found out in the aftermath, the brother of one of my best friends was in Afghanistan, one of the very last that was pulled out. I didn't know he was over there. He's a younger brother. So when we were growing up, my friend and I, he was just my friend's little brother, so I didn't pay much attention to him. But when I heard that his little brother was one like the very last, he was on the last transport out, that hits close to home. And I was just infuriated by the whole thing. What really bothered me was that, from what I understand, the leadership of the military said leave behind at least 2,500 men as a kind of retaining force.
Correct.
Would you think that's the right idea?
No. I would have never left.
You wouldn't have left in the first place.
Correct.
Huh? Okay.
I think it should have been handled differently. There was many ways you could have. It's kind of like when we first went over there. You're going over there large groups and you've got rotations. I think you start pulling out slowly, little at a time. I mean, percentages, play the percentages. So 1, you protect the people. 2, you protect the soldiers that are there. But when you just knee jerk, pull out, it was a bad idea.
Yeah, and like you said at the beginning of this part of the conversation, if you had the opinion that we needed to withdraw from Afghanistan, surely we could have done it much better and much more humanely than we did.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when you hear people say we should have pulled out all this, you don't get offended by that, do you?
No.
Because they're entitled to their view, and I've had debates with this. I had good friends that said we should have, left a long time ago and things like that. And said, well, but nobody, I mean, even Democrats or Republicans said that was well handled.
No, and everybody's entitled. I welcome confrontation and an educated or an articulate conversation that's handled appropriately. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blast your views, but I would like to listen to what you have to say and why you think what you think. Me being I was there, I experienced it. I have some knowledge of it. Am I the smartest at it? No. But I was on the ground. I had firsthand experience of, losing friends and visiting families who have lost soldiers, and then visiting some of the families that were lost in 9/11. So it really hits close to home. And then some of these guys that now, well, number 1, the ones that didn't make it home, and number 2, the ones that have significant injuries that can't function day in and day out back here. So,
do you feel like that sacrifice was thrown out the window by this withdrawal?
Yeah, I do. I do. And several other, not every member of the military feels that way, but I can tell you what, it's in the 90% that feel it was done incorrectly in the 90s, guaranteed. Yeah,
and there has to be some sort of resentment, and I'm sorry that it happened the way it did, because what I read about what's going on with the civilians in Afghanistan now. I mean, I read something about 2 months ago in the New York Times that young boys are being forced to sell kidneys to provide money for their families. I mean, organ donation, selling their organs. And I don't even know how to comprehend that. And it didn't have to be that way. No, and about what's happening to the women over there, even though the Taliban, when this all started back in August, said, oh, we'll take care of the women. And then they've done nothing that they said they would do, and they told our administration that they would do. And they're just brutalizing the women and all the people in general, but particularly them.
Yeah, the women have no rights.
Well,
I mean, none.
Yeah.
You think, zero.
Well, what also bothers me is that when we were there for that long time, we opened up a brief window of freedom for not just the women, but for a lot of the Afghan people, at least those in the urban areas. And then now slammed shut, and it's not going to open again, I don't think. And I don't know if it'll return to be a Al-Qaeda base, but if it does, I'm not confident at all this administration is going to do anything about it. So,
well, they've I have my takes on the Russia-Ukraine thing.
Yeah.
I think when people need help, you help them.
Why don't you ask about that as a military guy? You see what's going on in the Ukraine. What's going on?
I mean, my opinion is you help. You go and help. And that was needed. Some of the, could you say both wars were needed at the same time? We could argue that point. I think you fight one battle at a time. But I'm not a general. I don't know all the ins and outs. But I do know when some of the stuff that's going on that you see, and I mean, it's just unreal. Like just imagine going home today and all of a sudden we're getting attacked and you got to get up and leave.
That is a blessing in our history, is that outside of the Civil War, we really haven't experienced war on our own turf. We've been protected by these two oceans and two neighbors that we've had scuffles with Mexico in our history, but it isn't anything like what you see in Europe. And I think sometimes we're so detached from it. We just see it on the news. We don't understand what these Ukrainian people are going through.
Well, I mean,
it's
Europe
amazing.
It's not like, hey, we need to leave Texas. Where are we going to go? Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico. We all speak and read and write, speak the same language.
Right.
Over in Europe, you go to a neighboring country, you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture. You're a refugee, and I mean, and you have no money, you have nothing. You just got up and left. So how do you function?
Well, and there's people that think we don't need to be helping Ukraine more than we are. I'm not in that camp. I think we ought to help as much as we can, and they're worried about getting Putin riled up. So what? He's already riled up. And so, anyway, I'll save that for another show. But I'm just saying, I think American people, since we have never experienced it, except for people like you who went over there to experience. But we as families, we get in our cars, we do our thing, we go to our job. And it never enters our mind that our homes are going to be destroyed and our families could be killed and all this other business. I just think it's an eye-opening thing. And
it is, and we're blessed to live in the country that we live in.
And we're blessed because you got people like you to make sure we live in a country like this. I mean, you went there because you said you went there for economic reasons maybe, or whatever else. Like my dad, he got him a college education, and that's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But when the time came, both you and he put it out there, and you made it possible for this country for you and I to come and sit around and yik-yak about Joe Biden or whatever, around in a relatively safe environment.
Yeah.
And
unless Taylor comes after us.
Well, he's I don't know. He's pretty preoccupied. He has an intern working with him today. You learning a lot there, intern?
Say yes.
Okay, he says yes. All right. Well, Taylor, I tell you what, we don't need to go through the ads at the end, but I do want you to put up the Next Day Women's Center just because I did say I would help them out.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry.
Oops, sorry. There you go. They're having a diaper drive. So if you go over to City Market to buy some groceries, pick up a pack of diapers and drop them off at the front counter, and they'll get them to the Next Step Women's Center. So it's from the 13th to the 23rd, and they do great work. I'll probably have Megan on the show, I bet in July sometime, because they always have things going on. But anyways, the diaper drive. And this is what we were talking about earlier about Burleson. We have these kind of organizations all over the place doing this.
Well, it's like even City Market. Jill, she's awesome.
Yeah. As old timers remember it as Bransom's. And, the late owner, Richard Bransom, he's been gone for about 20 years now. This is exactly what he would be doing. He was involved in every charitable thing like that. So it's a great thing. Well, like I said, we're going to bypass the last round of ads because this is more important. But I'd like for you to have your last thoughts on your service and what it meant to you, and also anything else that comes to your mind.
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to come here and
you.
speak. And if I had to do it over again, I would definitely serve again. I mean, I jokingly say I wouldn't do it again, but if I really thought about it, yeah, I do the same thing over again, and it's helped build who I am and as a man. you know, as a businessman, as a father, as a soon-to-be husband, you know, it values. I mean, it taught me how to see things through. And I met some lifelong friends. Like my godson is now married. One of my buddies that I was in the Army with, his name's David Thomas, and he served 20 years. He married my cousin. And so I have a lifelong tie, you know, to him. And it's cool just to be able to kick back, probably when we get 60 or 70, and just talk about the good times back in Afghanistan, things that we know we did that we can't really talk about.
Right, I know. Well, I know, and there's some pretty hard stories, and I'm sure it's some stories that maybe, you know, most people don't realize just how brutal it is. And I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate you coming on here and being so honest about things. I appreciate you to talk about the dogs in particular, because I hope if you're out there in my vast listening audience, this is the man you need to talk to if you wanted obedience training, or maybe even more than that. So,
and support your Texas Rangers, please.
They need it. They need something, you know. So, but anyway, thank y'all for listening, guys, and be sure to share this with your friends. I mean, there's a lot of people out in this area. This is a very pro-military area of the state. So, tell your friends about it so they can maybe tune in and relay their own stories. And we appreciate it. I'll see you Monday. We'll be back in the studio with Alex Phillips. Everybody knows who he is. He's Burleson's City Economic Director. So we're going to be talking to Alex about what's going on in this town. And we'll talk to you later.